Farewell to Barn and Stack and Tree by A. E. Housman. Alfred Edward Housman, commonly known as A. E. Housman, was an English classical scholar and poet born in 1859 in Worcestershire, England. He attended St. John's College, Oxford, and went on to work as a professor of Latin at University College London and later at Trinity College, Cambridge. In 1896, he published his first and most famous collection of poems, A Shropshire Lad, which was well received and cemented his reputation as a poet. Housman's poetry is known for its simplicity, elegance, and melancholic themes, and is characterized by its use of traditional forms and its nostalgic tone. He wrote about themes of youthful innocence, lost love, and death, and his works are widely regarded as some of the finest examples of late Victorian and early modern poetry. The poem Farewell to Barn and Stack and Tree first appeared in Housman's collection of poetry, A Shropshire Lad. Originally, it was titled as the Poems of Terence Hearsay. Terence is a fictional character mentioned in some of the poems of A. E. Housman. Terence is often seen as a symbol or representation of the young, carefree spirit of youth, and his name appears in many of Housman's poems as a way of evoking feelings of youth, innocence, and optimism. In this poem, Farewell to Barn and Stack and Tree, Terence is the one who's repeating the speaker's confession. Before we jump into the explanation, I think it's better to understand the features of a ballad, because this poem is considered as a ballad. Now remember, a ballad is a poem that tells a story. In this article, you will find mostly used characteristics or features of a ballad. So please pause the video and read all the features. And this article is taken from the website englishsummary.com. Now I will recite the poem. Farewell to Barn and Stack and Tree by A. E. Housman. Farewell to barn and stack and tree, farewell to servant shore. Terence, look your last at me, for I come home no more. The sun burns on the half-mown hill, by now the blood is dried, and Morris amongst the hay lies still, and my knife is in his side. My mother thinks us long away, 'tis time the field were mown. She had 2 sons at rising day, tonight she'll be alone. And here's a bloody hand to shake, and oh man, here's goodbye. We'll sweat no more scythe and rake, my bloody hands, and I wish you strength to bring you pride, and a love to keep you clean, and I wish you luck, come lamb steed, at racing on the green. Long for me the rick will wait, and long will wait the fold, and long will stand the empty plate, and dinner will be cold. This is the glossary of the poem. So as usual, please pause the video and write down the meanings of the words. In the poem, Farewell to Barn and Stack and Tree, each and every stanza is given within quotation marks. Even though Terence is the one who's repeating the confession of the speaker, these words are of the speaker who kills his own brother Morris in the poem. So in the very first stanza, the speaker says goodbye to his familiar agricultural surrounding. Farewell means to say goodbye. He says goodbye to the barn. Now, barn is a large farm building. Farmers use these buildings to store their harvest and also to keep animals. And then he says goodbye to stack. Stack is a pile of hay and tree. And then he says goodbye to his village. Servant Shore is a village situated quite close to the river banks of Severn. Severn is the longest river in England. And then he says goodbye to Terence. Now you know who this Terence is. Terence must be a very close friend of the speaker. Terence, look your last at me. Please look at me for the very last time, for I come home now, because I'm not going to come back. I'm not going to return to my village. So the very first stanza begins with an act of saying goodbye, and this is a surprise beginning, which is a quite common balladic feature. In the second stanza, the reader would be able to understand the reason why the speaker is trying to leave the village forever. The sun burns on the half-moon hill. Now, this simply gives an idea about the time, the setting of the poem. It's an agricultural setting, and the time can be during the noon or maybe towards the evening. Sun burns on the half-moon hill. Half-moon hill, it can be they have simply cut the grass or maybe cut the harvest. They have reaped the harvest, but it's an act half done. They could not complete it. Therefore, the writer says the half-moon hill. By now the blood is dried. And when the reader reads this line, they can understand something terrible has happened here, because blood simply suggests violence, bloodshed suggests violence, or maybe a murder. Now the blood is dried. Now some time has passed after this particular act. What is the act? After reading the last two lines, we can understand it's a murder. And Morris amongst the hay lies still. Now look at the word order. Morris lies amongst the hay, or lies still amongst the hay. Now we know the poets, they can change the word order most of the time to keep the rhyme scheme. And this is what we called as inversion. So who is this Morris? Morris is the speaker's own brother. Morris amongst the hay lies still not moving, and my knife is in his side. This line clearly suggests that Morris is being murdered by his own brother, who is the speaker of the poem. Now, knife, the speaker has used his own knife to stab Morris into death, which is a very heinous crime. In the third stanza, the speaker reminds his mother, my mother thinks us long away. Now it's quite clear in this small family, there's mother and the two sons. My mother thinks us long away. Mother is waiting for her two sons to return after working in the fields. But they haven't returned yet, so mother thinks us long away. They are taking so long to come back. This means here it is, I is missing. For the missing I, there's an apostrophe. It is time the field were mown. They had enough time to complete their task of mowing the field. She had two sons at rising day. My mother, she means here mother, had two sons at rising day. Rising day is the early morning or the dawn. In the morning, my mother had two sons. Tonight, she will be alone. So this is the sad plight of this mother, because she is going to be all alone by herself from tonight onwards. Why? One son was killed and the other son is going to leave the village forever. In the fourth stanza, the speaker once again says goodbye to his friend. simply extending his bloody hand. Now, bloody hand, remember the speaker committed the murder and his hands are still covered with blood. And also, bloody hand suggests guilty consciousness or guilty feeling of the speaker. Because he committed the crime, bloody hand to shake and or suggests frustration. Oh man, here's goodbye. So once again he is saying goodbye. We'll sweat no more on scythe and rake, my bloody hands and I. Here we can be the speaker and his hands that are covered with blood right now. And we'll sweat no more. We are not going to work hard, toil our labor in the fields using scythe and rake. Scythe and rake are two gardening tools, and I'm not going to use these tools anymore. In this stanza, we get a clue as to why this speaker killed his own brother. Here he wishes Terence, I wish you strength to bring you pride, because he lost his own pride by killing his own brother. And what can be the reason? Here in the second line, he gives a clue, and allowed to keep you clean. Maybe these two brothers loved the same woman, and they got to know about that while they were working in the field, and the speaker lost his control. Out of sudden impulse and anger, he stabbed his own brother. So he wants his friend Terence to find a love to keep you clean, love to keep him clean, love to keep him out of any trouble. So he wishes him to find a faithful lover. And I wish you luck. He wishes him good luck. Come Lammerstead at racing on the green. Lammerstead is a harvest festival. Lammer means the month of August. Usually, this festival is celebrated in the first week of August. So, Lammerstead is just around the corner. This is really important for young unmarried men and women. They can socialize and mingle with the other people. And also, this is a great opportunity for them to find their partners. So maybe that's why the speaker reminds Terence of Lammerstead. And here in the last line, the green can be, it's a symbol for nature, prosperity, and remember this is the harvest season, time of the harvest. And also this suggests the agricultural setting of the poem. In this stanza, he once again reminds of the things that he is going to miss once he leaves the village. Long for me the rick will wait. Now rick is a stack of hay in the open air. So the rick will wait for me long. It's like he's addressing animate thing or a person. So the rick here is like personified. And long will wait the fold, his flock of sheep, it's going to wait for him. And long will stand the empty plate. Now this empty plate can be taken as a symbol. It's his plate, it's going to be empty, and his life is going to be empty. And it's not just that, his mother's life as well, because now the mother has lost her two sons. One is dead and the other one is going to leave the village forever. And dinner will be cold. And tonight he is not going to go home, and his dinner is going to be cold. Now here cold can be, it suggests the distance relationship. Now the relationship with the mother and the son, it's going to be a strained one now because of this heinous crime. Now what are the themes of this poem? This is about a fratricide. Fratricide is killing one's own brother. Here the speaker kills his own brother because of this love triangle. Remember, it's not given directly, not stated directly, but we can assume the reason for this murder is an involvement of a woman. Then this poem is about sudden anger and its devastating results. The speaker kills his own brother due to sudden anger, uncontrollable anger, sudden impulse. Remember, it's not a premeditated act or premeditated murder. And because of his anger, what happens here is the other brother lost his life. So it's about the loss of lives, and he could not fully spend his life, and it is symbolized by the phrase half moon hill. Then this is about broken relationships. The relationship with the two siblings, two brothers, it's broken. And also the relationship with the mother. The speaker lost his relationship with the mother because of this murder. And he's going to lose his close friend Terence as well, because he says goodbye to his friend Terence here. He's not going to communicate or keep relationship with this friend. Then this poem is about domestic conflict and its effect on family. Why do we call this as a domestic conflict? It happens between the members of a family. Who are the members here? The two brothers. And because of this one, the conflict, the whole family faced a tragedy. This poem is also about mindset of a murderer. Who is the murderer here? The speaker, the one who killed Morris. And what can be the mindset? He experienced a sense of deep regret and loss. The phrases my bloody hands and I bloody hand, the repeated phrase bloody simply suggests his guilty consciousness, or how he repents his act of killing his own brother. And the other one is the impact of a confession. Now this whole poem is a confession. Remember that Terence is the one who is repeating the speaker's confession here in the poem. So these are themes that are discussed in the poem. Now let's discuss about the techniques employed by the writer A. Housman in this poem. He has used the balladic form in the poem. Ballad is a narrative poem. In this poem also we would find a story about this brother who kills his own brother Morris. And it has a surprise beginning. The story is given in a narrative form, and the language is also simple, and the story is tragic. All these are the features of a ballad. Unlikely the traditional ballads, this one is relatively simple and short. Setting of the poem is of an agricultural one. It's quite obvious with the use of words like barn, stack, tree, then half moon hill, scythe, rake, the mentioning of the festival Lammerstead. All these suggest of an agricultural setting or a background. Now anaphora is the repetition of some words in the beginning of a line. Here farewell, it's repeated. It's an example for anaphora. And then once again in this stanza and repeated, even in this one, and once again repeated. And in the last stanza and is repeated in these three lines. So why is that? Now the writer is unable to articulate his feelings, express his emotions, because he is in a very confused state of mind after killing his own brother. Then anastrophe is the change of the word order. Now what are the examples? And Morris amongst the hay lies still. He has changed the word order. Morris lies still amongst the hay. Usually the writers do that, maybe to emphasize or to keep the rhyme scheme. Then what about the sound devices? Alliteration, assonance, consonants. If you read carefully each and every stanza, you can find lots of examples. For example, here alliteration, servant show, sound is repeated. Look your last, l sound is repeated. And for assonance, home, no more, o sound is repeated. Then once again you can find examples for consonants. Blood is dried, the sound is repeated. Morris, amongst, lies, still, sir sound is repeated. His side is his side, once again consonants. So like that, there are lots of sound devices employed in the poem. Now, next technique is dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is where there are situations, incidents in a piece of literature. The audience or the reader is aware of all these, but the characters in the particular piece of literature is unaware of the particular fact. Now here, the mother's character. My mother thinks us long away. She is completely unaware or oblivion to the fact that her two sons are not going to return, but by this time the reader knows that. So here it's an example for dramatic irony. Then what about imagery? Visual imagery. The use of the word blood. Blood is dried. Then bloody hand, my bloody hands and I. This creates a kind of a scary picture of a crime scene, bloodshed, violence. It's a picture of also, it creates a disturbing picture of this dead brother Morris. Then what are the symbols? Now all these barns stack, then half-moon hill, scythe, rake, even lammersteed, rick, fold, all these symbolize an agricultural background. And especially half-moon hill, it symbolizes the half-spent life of the brother Morris. And in the last stanza, empty plate, it symbolizes the emptiness of this speaker, emptiness of the life of the speaker, and his future is quite unclear, and his life is now quite empty without his loved ones, because he is going to leave his familiar surrounding and his loved ones. Use of commas and pauses. You will find throughout the poem there are commas and also semicolons employed. Why there are lots of commas? It simply suggests a pause, and once again the speaker is quite disturbed. He is in an agitated state of mind after committing this crime. He is unable to express his feelings quite clearly. So to indicate that, the writer has used lots of commas, pauses, and as well as anaphora. The very last technique, nostalgic tone. The tone of the poem is quite melancholic and nostalgic, because now the writer is going to leave the familiar surrounding, his village, and he feels quite nostalgic about saying goodbye to this village. Right, now I have discussed the themes and the techniques of the poem. I hope now you have a thorough understanding about the poem Farewell to Barn and Stack and Tree by A. Housman.